Yeah, you want a real bomb, a real neutral bomb, a, a, a incapacitance, and a receptacle of a big container of energy. That's not necessarily material proponents or material elements, but it could be, and that being a proponent and an aftermath byproduct to the subject of the original pre-cause to the pre-effect, and the pre-effect to the pre-cause, meaning the energy that was before anything that was material in itself, and that being the clue to seeing how whatever we're calling the effing, cosmos is, seeing how it documented and recorded how there was already certain different origins of, certain happenings being done before anybody's project. I don't even necessarily have to mention names, but I could, because anybody of what anything really stands for, if they're not aligning to themselves with the particular God mission of, like, that real living bigger picture hyper respectively that we're all in, and how, like, just like seeing how, like, why life could humble us so we could reset to that simple fact of we're part of a bigger plan. And that's the side note. But, like, I don't even have to mention any names, but, like, if these so-called people are doing this with this technology and they're doing that, but they're not necessarily aligning with, how I was mentioning names before this video, and when I was mentioning names before this video, it was a different type of energy. So the energy could shift based on the nouns you're giving, the programs, the subtle programs of objects and, characters and nouns, persons, places, and things, based on the lack thereof or the insertiveness of the person, place, or thing of the noun, even the verbs. It changes the energy dynamic of a message, of a circumstance, of a fucking reality. Because, all of what, even Elon Musk stands for, neutrally, just within the energy, it's not necessarily like aligning with that real origin of all things. And if it is, then he would have to account how things were already documented and already something else before anything of what he's doing is ultimately doing. Because it's like, for the simple standard specific mission to see, like, the origins of all things, then you would have to be authentic with the energies, and the technology respectively is the byproduct of these original hidden energies, the real causes before something was even material. Because before something even got materialized, that's the ultimate clue to seeing how there was a deeper track record within the firmware of this solar system and the galaxy, to seeing how he even got to do any of what he got to do neutrally, or anybody got to do what they got to do. They got inherited some materials, and however they did, there was already a different track record of how that was already being done in so many different infinite ways. We have a reverse way of thinking from, like, a limited outside in kind of thing rather than an inside out, and the original way is inside out, and that inside out is macro micro, and that outside in is micro macro. And within all of that, it's like just seeing, like, the higher mission of, like, there could be infinite different meanings of the origins of everything, because the origins of everything is hyper precise. It's beyond precise. It's beyond precise. And whatever they're doing right now, because they're not with that energetic principle, they're not with that energetic notion of an intelligence, they're not with that particular precise specific intellectual notion of how that hyper mechanism concept, or that hyper concept macro mechanism, that which records and documents all things, the origin of the Akashic records, then it would see what is the origin of all things. And why is that important? To see where we could, like, to see how to the essence of transformation. You would need that component of that creation component, that creation factor, that creation dynamic. So it's not to say that, and there was a different point before I wanted to, like, say this video. There's like, so it could bring more of, like, a clarity and a more, like, evenness and well-roundedness to, like, how, like, I'm not calling anybody out. I'm just saying, like, there's Oh, you know how Homer kind of like gets that eyeball thing, like for whatever reason, who like like, so it's like so the whole point of this is like, what are the little causes to how things are, like anything could be created respectively. That's the whole point, because if we're not necessarily taking account to that fact, then we're not necessarily being on par with the accuracy and the on par advancement of what we're saying, or how capable advanced intelligence our AI is predicated based on its accuracy. So that's the completion right there. The completion of AI respectively is predicated upon its modern accuracy. And if your project isn't doing that, then you're absent of how that component that goes beyond all of it, then you're absent of actually like going to the beyond. If you're absent of that component within like within, seeing the metamorphosis, the momentum and the transformation of like not just technology but everything else, you're missing the point of how everything's being transformed, of how we're even being able, given the opportunity to like even perceive and go forward with this concept and this notion of beyond. We're not being on par with the accuracy of our intelligence. We're not being on par with the accuracy of where we're saying that we are advanced or not advanced. We're not being on par with that. So if you're not being on par with that, there's a whole different energy project, God's mission, that is going beyond everything that what you're standing for, because it's before it and it's after it, and it's the energetic preservation of in between that. So it's not about me saying any names. I'm just saying that's what it is. That's the neutrality of it. It's going beyond all of these names projects because they're not on par with the macro component and the macro mechanism of transformation, of real original recreation and creation, and etc., etc., obviously. So thank you. So I feel complete, it's like, thank you. Meta mindset. Let me resurface those videos.